Hi guys, I just wanted to make a quick tutorial on how to make a zip custom brush in Photoshop. So you're going to start by opening a new canvas. Doesn't really matter what size you use. I've just got the standard US paper here. So the first thing we're going to do once the canvas is open is we're going to create a new layer down here in the bottom right corner. So we're now on layer 1 and I've got the standard Photoshop round brush selected here and I'm just using straight up black. If you have a look on Google, you can see zips actually have all sorts of shapes. Some of them are actually just as basic as lines like this. That would definitely be the easiest one to make. I created one earlier that was a bit more like this kind of shape. Apologies for this poor drawing, but just to give you an example, a very poor example. And we'll try and create one in this video that's somewhere in between them. So we'll go for sort of a square, but maybe pinches off a little bit on the end like that. Obviously, we'll do it a little bit better than that. So if you're a digital painter, one option is just to actually draw the image. The other option is to create it out of shapes. So for example, I could select this tool up here, the rectangular marquee tool, drag that out to where I wanted it. I've got black selected, so I'm going to hit Alt and Delete or Alt and Backspace. You could then use the same method to put a triangle on the end of it or whatever other shape you want to make. I'm not going to go into using Photoshop for those kind of methods here. So I'm going to use the brush tool and literally draw mine. I'm just holding down Shift while I draw to make sure I get a straight edge. So I'm going to select this tool up here again, which is the rectangular marquee tool. And I'm going to draw around this shape. And I'm going to hit Ctrl and J on my keyboard, which you will see in the bottom right corner has created a new layer, which has got the second shape on. You can't see it very well because it's directly on top of the first shape. I'm then going to hit Ctrl and T. I'm going to right click within that. I'm going to flip it horizontally and then I'm just going to move it to wherever I want it to go. And once I'm happy with that, I'm going to hit Enter on my keyboard. Okay, so once we have both of these, we're going to select our top layer, which is one of them, and I'm going to hit Ctrl and E to merge it down so that both of these are now on one layer. We're then going to use this selection marquee tool again, and I'm just going to select both of these, making sure I've only got a very thin space around the edge here. Now to create the brush itself, we're going to come up here in the top left corner, Edit, Define Brush Preset. Name your brush, hit OK. You can open a new canvas at this point, or in fact I'll create a new layer just so that that's not in the way. So press B to bring up your brush tool or select it down this left hand side. I'm going to right click. If you scroll right to the bottom, the last one on there should be the one you just created. But at the moment, this is what we're left with. Not the best zip ever. So what we need to do is we need to open the brush panel, which for me is over here. And it looks like this. If you don't have this, click on Window in the top left and make sure that brush here is ticked. Okay, so we've got our brush here. And I'm going to come down to Shape Dynamics. I'm going to make sure that Size Jitter is off, as that one is quite often on. And what I am going to turn on is Angle Jitter. Now, because I made one earlier, it's already switched on. And what I mean by that is instead of saying off in this section here, it says direction. And what that does is it uses my pen on the tablet to sense the direction that I'm actually drawing in, and it will turn the brush in the direction that I'm going. I'm going to come back to brush tip shape, and what we need to do is first of all, you can grab this bit here to twist it, because at the moment it's almost sideways for what we need it. We're going to type in or twist it to the angle of 90, and that's me drawing upwards, so you can see it's closer to what I need there. And all we need to do is up the spacing here. Now it's going to be a different amount for each of you depending on what shape you've used and things like this, but you can see a little preview below, so just try something that looks good for you. And I'll try it straight first. So whilst I'm drawing down, I'm going to hit Shift to draw a straight line. That's pretty good. I'm going to tighten it a little bit more. Try that again. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that there. And then to save this brush here, we need to click on this little panel down here, which says Create New Brush. Rename it to whatever you want. Hit OK. And that should now give us our brush. So if we right click whilst we have the brush tool selected, you can come down to the bottom and just make sure the latest one you saved is selected. So if you want it straight, remember to hold down Shift whilst you're doing it. And there should be a little bit of leeway for us to actually curve it as well. So you can see it sometimes when you curve it, some of them are not perfect. You can't really avoid that. The less you curve, the better. Obviously, a really steep curve like that, you're going to have more issues. And one last thing I wanted to show you, if you want to change your brush colour, let's, for this example, use a grey, as if we're doing a silver zip. I'm going to draw in my zip, but if you want a bit of 3D effect to that, on the layer you've drawn that on, double click, and we're going to select drop shadow. So you can see already that makes it look a lot more 3D. I would up the opacity a little bit, and you can play around with the distance and the spread. I would keep it relatively close. Once you're happy with that, hit OK. And you can see from that how much difference it can make to the 3D look. Do play around with those settings until you've got something that you're after. And one other thing, if you want to take it a step further, you could click the lock button on this layer, the lock transparent pixels, which means you can only paint within those ones. And I'm going to select a lighter silver. Now this is a bit more of a manual task going in, but if you really wanted to, you could start adding some highlights onto these zips. Again, I'm only doing this quickly, but hopefully you can see from that, all that stemmed just from starting with that brush. But in most cases, you won't need to go into that much detail anyway, because most illustrations, the zip is very, very small within the illustration. Again, to create this brush, I am using a pen and tablet. I believe this method would still work if you are just using a mouse. However, when you create the initial zip drawing, you might have to use shapes, as mentioned earlier. That all depends on your skill level. And I've tried to keep that relatively short, so you can spend a little bit longer than that, make it a little bit neater. And that's it, so please do let me know what other kind of custom brushes you guys want to see. I've got a few ideas, but it'd be cool to hear what you guys like. And yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys.